Castles were not built for comfort. They were fortresses, symbols of power, and bulwarks against enemies. Their walls, sometimes 10 feet thick, were designed to repel arrows, battering rams, and siege engines. But those same walls, so effective against invaders, were merciless against their inhabitants. Stone does not warm easily. It absorbs the chill of winter and radiates it inward, turning chambers into echoing refrigerators. Moisture seeped through cracks, leaving walls damp to the touch. Draughts whistled through arrow slits and unshuttered windows, carrying with them the bite of the night air. Imagine the contrast. The lord of the castle, retreating to his chamber with a roaring fire, thick rugs, and a featherbed, versus the guard pacing the battlements, his cloak stiff with frost, or the servant curled up in a corner of the kitchen, hoping the dying embers of the oven would keep him alive until dawn. Castles were not homes in the modern sense. They were machines of war, and those who lived inside them had to adapt to the cold as best they could. Survival, not comfort, was the measure of a night's rest. The hearth was the heart of medieval warmth. In the great hall, a central fire burned day and night, its smoke curling upward to escape through a hole in the roof or a crude chimney. Lords and ladies dined, conversed, and even slept near this fire, for it was the only reliable source of heat in the castle, its cavernous interior. In private chambers, fireplaces were smaller, but no less vital. Servants would bank the fire at night, covering the embers with ash so they smoldered until morning. This practice ensured that the fire could be revived quickly without striking flint in the dark. But fire brought its own discomforts. Smoke often lingered, stinging eyes and coating walls with soot. Sparks leaped from the hearth, threatening tapestries, and straw rushes on the floor. The smell of burning wood clung to clothing and hair. Still, the fire was life. Without it, the stone chambers would have been unbearable. Families gathered close, huddling in its glow, knowing that beyond its circle of warmth lay only darkness. Clothing was as much a weapon against the cold as armor was against the sword. At night, people did not strip down 2 nightgowns, as we imagine today. Instead, they slept in layers, linen undergarments, woolen tunics, and heavy cloaks. The wealthy wrapped themselves in firmin, fox, or bearwool. The poor relied on patched quilts and coarse wool blankets. Beds were piled high with coverings, feather mattresses for nobles, straw pallets for peasants. Wool was the fabric of survival. It was warm even when damp, and it was everywhere, in cloaks, blankets, and stockings. Linen, though lighter, was prized for its ability to wick away sweat, keeping the body dry beneath the heavier layers. To sleep in a medieval castle was to cocoon oneself in fabric, to build a fortress of cloth against the fortress of stone. The four-poster bed was more than a symbol of wealth. It was a survival tool. Heavy curtains hung from its frame, enclosing the sleeper in a private chamber within the chamber. These curtains trapped body heat, creating a microclimate that could be several degrees warmer than the surrounding room. They also blocked drafts that slipped through shutters and arrow slits. Inside this fabric fortress, a lord and lady might sleep side by side, their breath misting in the cold air until the curtains closed around them. Servants, too, sometimes had curtained beds, though simpler and less ornate. The canopy bed was not just furniture. It was architecture in miniature, a house within a house, a warm refuge in a world of stone and frost. In the medieval world, privacy was rare. Families often slept together, not only for companionship but for warmth. Children nestled beside parents, servants curled at the foot of their masters' beds, and travelers shared whatever space was available. Body heat was the cheapest and most reliable heater. In garrisons, soldiers practiced hot bunking. One man would rise for his watch, and another would slip into the still warm bed he had left behind. This closeness was practical, but it also shaped relationships. Bonds were forged in the shared struggle against the cold. To sleep beside another was to share not only warmth but trust, for in the vulnerable hours of the night, one relied on the other. Isi presence for technology, Tug Simple, offered some relief. Bed warmers' metal pans filled with hot coals were slid between sheets before sleep. They left the bed toasty, though sometimes dangerously so, as sparks could ignite straw mattresses. Warm drinks were another comfort. A posset, made of hot milk curdled with ale or wine and spiced with nutmeg or cinnamon, was a common bedtime draught. It soothed the stomach and spread warmth through the body. Nightcaps, both literal and figurative, were essential. Woolen caps kept heat from escaping through the head, while gloves or mittens protected fingers from the chill. Tissi, small rituals warming the bed, sipping a put, donning a kapoor, acts of defiance against the cold, gestures of humanity in a harsh environment. The cold did not only come from the air. It seeped up from the ground and pressed in from the walls. To combat these, people covered stone floors with rushes or straw, sometimes mixed with herbs, to mask odors. These layers provided insulation, though they also harbored pests. Walls were hung with tapestries, not merely for decoration, but for warmth. Thick woven cloth blocked drafts and added color to otherwise gray chambers. In some castles, even ceilings were draped with fabric, creating a tent-like effect that softened both sound and cold. Tessa measures transformed the castle from a bare fortress into something resembling a home. They were not luxuries, but necessities, without which the inhabitants would have shivered through every night. Medieval nights were long, especially in winter. Without artificial light, people often followed a pattern of first sleep and second sleep. They would retire soon after dusk, sleep for several hours, then wake around midnight. During this interval, they might pray, talk, tend the fire, or even visit neighbors. After an hour or two, they returned to bed for their second. This rhythm made the cold more bearable. The midnight waking allowed fires to be stoked, blankets adjusted, and bodies warmed with food or drink. It also gave its long darkness into manageable parts. Tita sleeps remind us that medieval life was not only about survival, but about adaptation, finding patterns that fit the world as it was. The experience of sleeping in a castle varied dramatically by status. For the lord and lady, there were feather beds, fur blankets, private chambers, and roaring fires. Their rooms were adorned with tapestries, their beds enclosed by curtains, their nights softened by luxury. For servants, the reality was harsher. They slept in attics, cellars, or kitchens wherever space and warmth could be found. A servant might curl up near the oven, grateful for the lingering heat of the day's baking. Others huddled together in shared quarters, their straw pallets thin and their blankets few. Guards endured the worst. On the battlements, they wrapped themselves in cloaks and relied on sheer endurance. Their sleep, when it came, was brief. Medieval society. Privilege insulated some, while others endured the raw edge of survival. In the end, medieval was about comfort. It was about survival. Castles were cold, drafty. Fires smoked, blankets itched, and beds crawled with lice. Yet people endured. They layered their clothing, shared their beds, banked their fires, and drank their possets. They adapted as humans always. They inhabited the romance of castles, soaring towers, the noble halls, the glittering banquets hides this reality. Behind the stone walls lay nights of shivering, of smoky air, of whispered prayers for warmth.